This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Now, one of the things you may or may not know is that me and Colb do cheer for the Browns. And, well, Colb, do you think the pressure is going to be on DeShaun Watson this year?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And they've already burned one of the 5 years of his contract. And now we're into year two, and there are expectations internally and externally. Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the team, talked about it this week. He said Kevin Stefanski's not on the hot seat, but they expect to make the playoffs this year. And that's a...
That mean he on the hot seat. Dog, that mean he on the hot seat. Look, that mean I ain't going to fire you before you get disqualified for the playoffs. But if you don't make the playoffs...
If he wasn't on the hot seat, he would have just ended it right there. Like, oh yeah, Kevin's not on the hot seat. And wouldn't have said nothing about making the playoffs, nothing about expectations. He just would have said, we believe in Kevin. We want him to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns for the foreseeable future. He's not on the hot seat. It would have ended it there. But he said, he's not on the hot seat. But we better make the playoffs though. Like that means you on the hot seat, bro. That means you might get fired. That means Jim Schwartz might be the head coach or something like that. Somebody else might be the head coach next season. So yeah, he on the hot seat.
What that means is like if you at work and you show up late 2 times and you like, hey man, am I in trouble? Nah, man. But them social media numbers better be up. Oh, okay. I know what time it is. It's time for me to perform. Right? That is what he's on. He's not on the hot seat, but he got expectations. And look, having expectations is the same exact thing as being on the hot seat. Because if there are no expectations for you, we just take what you give us for what you give us. It don't matter. If there are expectations, well, they not met. Something's going to have to change.
Expectation for a team that has only made it once. Like, they had that 1 year, 2020, and they beat the Steelers with all those flukes that happened early in the wild card game, and then they gave the Chiefs a run for their money, and then the past 2 years have been underachieving for the Browns. This is where the bar is set high. And if it doesn't work this year with this revised offense, with a shift toward the passing game in Cleveland, there could be some changes. Somebody could be accountable because they're never going to blame it on DeShaun Watson. They've made this decision to go for DeShaun Watson and build the team around him. And if the other people in place to build that team around him aren't getting it done, they're the ones who are going to pay for it.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I want to address before we can get into that. First of all, that 2020 game was not a fluke. We beat the Steelers. Mm-hmm. We beat their ass. I want to be clear about that. We beat their ass. That wasn't no fluke. We just beat them. It is what it is. And when they talk about the disappointments in the last few years, well, last year was last year. Let's be honest. The starting quarterback didn't play for 11 games. If you take any starting quarterback on any other team in the NFL and they had to sit out 11 games, that team probably wasn't going to do well that year. Like, how do you think the Chiefs would have been if Patrick Mahomes missed 11 games?
Yeah, if you take any team's best quarterback out for 11 games, then that's probably not going to be.
They probably not making the playoffs. Like, let's just be honest. They probably not making playoffs. And then 2021, we know what happened. It's not that the team was bad. It's that the quarterback was awful. The expectations are what the expectations are. I don't care if the Browns have been bad my entire life, the majority of my entire life. Like, you have Myles Garrett. A lot of people believe he's the best pass rusher in the league. You got Denzel Ward, great corner. And you got DeShaun Watson, who a lot of football people I trust have said, yeah, he's one of the best quarterbacks. Like, they need to make the playoffs. That's the expectation. The standard is what the standard is, and Kevin got to get it done.
Yeah, it's just what it is what it is. It doesn't matter what the uniform is at the end of the day. The expectation is what the roster is, right? And
when we have these reductive conversations where it's like, oh, it's the Browns, so we can't expect much out of them. It's like you're giving these dudes an excuse for no reason, because it's like, it don't matter because your helmet is orange, you're supposed to lose 2 more games. Like, it don't make any sense to me, right? Like, the expectation is based on what you have accumulated in that locker room and what those dudes are capable of doing. Now, look, every year doesn't work out, right? Sometimes you get injuries here and there. Sometimes you don't reach your full potential with the best team that you've had, and sometimes you need a little bit of luck. We all understand that, but there's a baseline of performance that you need to hit in order to reach expectation. I think it's not unreasonable for Browns fans to think, hey, you should make the playoffs. And look, every year expectations don't get met. We do this thing as fans. We're like, oh, see, they set us up to have high expectations. Like, no, you're not supposed to look at Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and J.O.K. and all these dudes that we pay all this money for on defense and offense and think that the team's not supposed to be good, right? It's like the expectations are set for a reason. They're reasonable expectations. And if they aren't met, then things need to happen in order to make them be met. And that's why the Browns had to get rid of a special teams coordinator, get rid of a defensive coordinator, because in their opinion, that's why they couldn't meet expectations, because they know that they should have been better last year. And yeah, like DeShaun Watson was out for 11 games because he got suspended, but still probably should have been better than that, right? Like, a couple games we lost for bad special teams or just putrid defensive play for no reason. So, you know, the expectations are set because the team should be good, because the roster been good since 2019, Colb. The roster been good since 2019, man. People gonna lose their patience sooner than later, and I don't blame them. In this season, it's like, yo, dog, I don't care what happens. Y'all got to figure out a way to win and get to the playoffs, because people will start losing their mind.
Yeah, man. Like, it is what, like you said, they've had to fix things. This is the most talented roster the Browns have had since I've been alive. Probably since both of us have been alive. Like, they've never had this many talented players on the team at one time since I've been on this earth. They got to figure something out. They got to win 10 games. Like, you got, like, no matter what happens, what's going on throughout the year, barring like catastrophic injuries to multiple important players this season, you're going to have to find a way to win 10 games.
I mean,
it's what it is.
Unfortunately, that is the way it is in the NFL. You know, hopefully they get a little time there. You know, again, this is a situation like with Kevin Stefanski that I think was thrusted on him. So you got to have a little bit of a, you know, be mindfulness of that, at least to a degree. But I do, you know, I'm with you or echo his sentiments. I mean, yeah, DeShaun Watson, I expect him to be. He could be another guy where you said 8 guys, right? He could be that guy that we jump in and go, oh, hey, DeShaun Watson's a franchise quarterback. He was before all this stuff went down, right? He definitely was in that top 5 combo. So let's see where he can get back to. I expect him to be kind of dancing around that again. I do. I'm a believer in DeShaun Watson, the football player, for sure. And now, hey, some of that other stuff's in the rearview mirror, right? And they do have a lot of things about their team they like. They've certainly improved the wide receiver room a little. We know the O-line's good. The running backs may be the best in football. The defensive coordinator, they got a new one there in Jim Schwartz. I think that's a big part of this thing too. You know, how good is their defense and what does that look like? But, you know, I think your point, yeah, is real. Playoffs are a high bar, especially in that division and in that conference right now. I mean, damn, like we've talked about, the AFC is loaded with teams and players and quarterbacks, I mean. So that is a high bar. And I hope it's not just playoffs, because if they're 10-7 or 11-6 and don't make the playoffs, I hope it's not a type of thing where they get rid of Kevin Stefanski because of that.
Now, that's a good question. There's multiple things I want to touch on in there.
That's an important part, and I want to touch on that. If they go like 11-5 and don't make it, or 11-6 because they're 17 games. So if they go 11-6 and they don't make it, I don't think that's fireable. I don't think that's fireable. I'm sorry.
I don't think in most cases it would be fireable. But we forget when we looking at the record, it ain't the record that gets you fired. It's how you get to that record. So let's say they get to 11-5 or 12-6. Well, no, 11-5 in this way, in the same way that the Steelers in 2020 got to 11-5, where they started off 11-0. Well, started off like 10-0 or something, and it lost like 4 of their last 5 down the stretch, right? Like, that will be unacceptable. You cannot fumble the last part of the season, no matter what your record was before. You can finish strong. People will be more lenient on a strong finish than a weak finish, but I don't even think 11-5 is unilaterally safe because, like, yo, if you don't make the playoffs because you just fumbled 4 playoff clinching games in a row, what are we supposed to do with that? Like, legitimately. Are we supposed to keep you? Is that something that would keep you your job if you had 4 opportunities to secure the goal and you just fumbled 4 of them?
I don't know if I agree because, like, how many games the Browns win last season? 7?
Yeah, they won 7. Did they even win 7?
I think they were 7-10. They were 7-10.
Yeah.
So if you go from 7-10 to 11-6, barely miss out on the playoffs. Some weird stuff happened. Teams win 12 games, whatever. You barely miss out. I don't think that's a good enough reason to fire him. I think you just run it back one more year. He on the hot seat. We got to make the playoffs. I don't know.
We wanted to fire Brandon Staley because he blew one game like that. Okay, that's all I'm saying. In the playoffs. To the Jekyll wires. Like, we being real logical right now. But Colb, you've been in those spaces. I do this show all the time in front of these fans. I know what it is when the team loses a bunch of games in a month. The fan base is not going to be like, well, you know, we did have a 4-game improvement. No, we're going to be talking about why did we lose all of these games at the end. That's going to get them fired. That's going to get you fired. Like, I promise you, if we thought fire Kevin Stefanski was crazy. If he starts off 11-5, half these people will leave, or 11-0, and then, like, loses down the stretch. Nah, dog. That you can't do that. That will get you fired. Like, honestly, he would get. I think it would be a higher chance of him getting fired if he had a collapse like that and finished 11-5 than if he just, like, went 9-8 and missed the playoffs, but, like, won 4 games in a row down the stretch. Because you'd be like, he won them when they mattered. Like, but if you lose them when they matter, dog, nobody's trying to bring that back.
I guess it would just depend on how the season actually goes.
Yeah,
because it's easy to like hypothesize and throw.
It's easy to put a number on it right now.
Yeah, but like
because,
until the season actually happens, we don't really know like how we gonna feel about his performance. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just take last season, the Jets game. The Jets game was the game where, like, I knew for a fact Joe Woods was getting fired and Mike Prefer was probably getting let go. And that was week 2 of the season. It's not, and most people would be like, oh, it's week 2, you know, bad loss, whatever. Nah, dog. It's how they lost that game. That game was won until it wasn't. And the way that the defense and the special teams blew that at the end, I was like, you cannot bring those 2 dudes back. Like, you cannot bring them back here next year. Like, that was all-time fumbling of an easy win I've ever seen in my life. Now, if we get more situations like that this season, then yeah, we might be having some uncomfortable conversations. But I really don't think that's gonna happen this year, though.
I hope not. Like, that's not the kind of thing you see coming, though. How many people predicted the Browns would probably go like 8-8 or 7-9 or something like that this year, right? Like, a lot of people predicted the Browns would probably go like 8-9. So the quarterback wasn't hurt, wasn't going to play for 11 games, especially. Like, I don't think a lot of people were predicting that the Browns go like 14 or 12 or 10 wins or anything like that, right? The expectations were low. But you heard how these people was talking when we was going through the season. Like, it's one thing to put a number on it, but how you get to that number, oh, that's different. And how the Browns got to 7 wins this year was the most frustrating way possible to get to 7 wins, because you could have won like 4 or 5 of those games. And that's why everybody wanted everybody fired at the end of the year. It wasn't the number of wins. They would have just got to 7 wins in a pretty pedestrian way. We'd be like, yeah, well, DeShaun didn't play that much. We'd have just walked it off. But it was how you got to 7 wins. Oh, it's Kevin's play calling that puts us in this situation. It's this and that. Like, now also, you notice they started to get off of that whole, DeShaun Watson, he can't really play anymore thing. Remember that? Remember that thing we was going through where they was lying about his ability to play football?
And they completely ignored 2 of the 6 games he played last season were in horrible weather. Like, neither quarterback could throw the ball. A lot of just terrible weather. And Cleve TA, I don't know if people know who he is, but if you follow TA on Twitter, like, he big analytics dude, very smart, extremely smart, love TA. He's like, if you take it, it's like these are his stats. If you just take those 2 games out, he's like, and they're like pretty respectable given the situation of not playing for 11 weeks and they get thrown in there. Like, you go start seeing more of that. You go start seeing more of like the national people, especially if he start off hot. If the Browns start off hot, you can see a lot of them walking all that stuff they were saying last season back.
Well, quietly, what's been happening is like the people who watch the film have been like, nah, dog, that's not what it was. Like, right? Like, that's because I've been saying this since like the film came out. I was like, nah, this ain't what they saying it is, right? And everybody be like, oh, you're just a Browns fan, all this. And then like as time goes on, more people are like, nah, dog, that's not what it was. Like, I don't think that he's gonna be bad, or anything else like that. So that word's getting up to like Phil Simmons. He's like, let me get off of this one, right? You've noticed that like they've started to get off of that. You're starting to hear this key term on the field when it comes to DeShaun Watson a lot more, right? Because they're starting to realize, nah, we're gonna have to live in a world where we're gonna have to talk about this dude as a football player being really good.
Hey, you peep what he did, right? He's like, I'm a fan of DeShaun Watson.
On the
football
field.
Player. The football player.
On the field while he is playing football for 60 regulated minutes. I wanted to make it very clear that I am just admiring. I admire his ability to throw the pigskin around and nothing else.
Like, he made sure we heard that. I'm a fan of the football player.
Wait till they have to talk about his leadership skills, dog. Like, that's gonna be a whole mind maze. Like, boy. He's such an excellent leader in the facility, on the football field, and specifically on the team charter. They're going to have to make it sooner.
Like all the other players, they just loved it. I mean, they love playing with this guy. They love being on the field with him.
They just love this guy as a football player.
Football player.
Dog, he gonna have these announcers out here playing cover 2.
Hey, he just threw the allegations to the side. He was like, yeah, not all that other stuff that happened last year.
And not all that's out the way. Not all that's out the way. He's such a great football player.
I'm like, damn, bro, that didn't take no time.
We're already there. He didn't even have like a great game yet. Like,
it's like, damn, bro.
Because they looked at the film and they was like, oh no, let's get off of these takes. Let's get off of these ones. It wasn't what we thought it was, because they thought it was Russ during this season. And most people who have not watched the Browns looked at that situation and go, oh, it was Russ. No, this was not what that was with the shot. I was watching that tape like, yo, this is bad. It is one of the more fascinating things to watch as an outside observer. The way that they're gonna move around this, because they're kind of in a hole right now. Like, they don't know what to do. They made this like they don't know what to do with them.
Look, bro. I just think it's funny that they're already acknowledging, like, hey, man, I think it's hilarious. It's like, hey, he might be really, really, really good.
He casually threw it. Hey, he might be top 8. Like, he might be top 8 now.
He was top 5 before, he was top 5 before everything went down. I'm just saying.
You know what I mean? Look, if they thought the film was sorry, they'd be saying nothing about him. But the fact that they're talking about him right now when they don't have to means, oh yeah, they know what time it might be. They have gotten so much less incendiary about why they think the contract is bad from a football perspective. They are saying this is going to be a disaster because he's not even that good. Those takes have gone away and have been about the personal responsibility of the league as a whole. You notice that, right? Like at the beginning when they were doing this whole thing, it was like, oh, the Browns paid this much for a failed quarterback trade. And then all of a sudden now it's like, well, what does this contract mean for the rest of the NFL? It is because they're getting tapped on the shoulder by their film people and being like, this ain't what you think it was. This ain't what you thought it was.
It's like, hey, it was some problems. It was some problems. He wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't the problem.
Nah, he still got it.
They got some receivers. They got some receivers that's actually pretty fast now too. It might be an issue.
Yeah, they are starting to be like, oh no, they're doing it right. That's what the media coverage has been. Oh no, the Browns might actually be good. How do we deal with this, right? Like, because last year they didn't think it was a chance. This year it's like, ooh, what do we do if we have to talk about them?